Hello, everyone. I'm Blayne Gilmer. Welcome to Southeastern 14. The SEC is slated to add 2 teams in 2024 with Texas and Oklahoma. We've known that's coming for a while, but is realignment over with? Greg Sankey and the SEC have some decisions to make because there's rumblings elsewhere. We're going to talk about if there is more realignment, if there is more expansion by the conference, what teams should the SEC add? As I said, I'm Blayne Gilmer. Welcome to Southeastern 14. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. We try to cover the SEC differently than everyone else. Wanted to touch on this Magnificent Seven thing that's going on over in the ACC. Of course, some teams over there before the ACC meetings, some preeminent programs, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, NC State, Miami, Virginia, and Virginia Tech all kind of banding together, voicing their displeasure at the TV rights deal they're locked into with ESPN until I believe 2036, and they are way behind when it comes to the revenue. As many as $30 million, as much as a $30 million gap potentially between what the ACC is bringing in with its television rights deal and the SEC and Big Ten. And they're really falling behind the SEC and Big Ten rapidly. And those 7 schools know it. There's some preeminent brands in there. But the question is, if after 2024, let's say we get through 2024, the new college football playoff, everything like that, and if some of these schools were to be able to find, and they've got lawyers looking to it and all this kind of stuff, if Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, NC State, Miami, Virginia, and Virginia Tech all of a sudden were able to break free from that deal and be able to be free agents, so to speak, our question to you is, which programs would you like to see? I tell you, the 2 that jump out immediately because of brand recognition and because of where they are located, Florida State and Miami. Here's why those are 2 of the biggest ones and 2 of the ones that if I was in charge of the SEC, would go after immediately. One, those brands are undeniable. When you talk about Florida State, when you talk about the U, even though they haven't had the success on the field, you're still talking about iconic brands that have historical relevance. And also, when it comes to people just looking at those logos, they understand, okay, there's been a history of success there. People love to buy that merch, all of that kind of stuff. Bringing that kind of brand into the SEC, never going to hurt, okay? Then you talk about the location. They are both schools within the Sunshine State, the state of Florida. The reason that's big is because it would prevent the Big Ten, who is going to continue to expand. You can rest assured that they're not stopping at USC and UCLA. They would absolutely love to get a Big Ten footprint down in the state of Florida. Helps out with recruiting, helps out with their television rights deal, all that kind of stuff. So if you're the SEC and you want to stay one step ahead of the Big Ten, you need to try to lock in those 2 schools from the state of Florida. Iconic brands. They have success in basketball, success in baseball as well, not just football. You got to think about the other sports here. And I think Miami and Florida State would be the first 2 that I tried to lock in if I was Greg Sankey. That would put the number from 16, of course, with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. It's 14 now, 16 with Texas and Oklahoma. If you add Florida State and Miami, that puts you at 18. I think in the number 20 would be the number to get to. So you're looking at what are the other 2 schools to bring in. I think North Carolina is definitely one that you would want to bring in. The natural rivalry with South Carolina right there across the border. You also have the great basketball tradition and also a great baseball program there at North Carolina. They haven't had as much success football-wise as maybe they thought they would have under Mac Brown, but they have a chance to be pretty good this year with Drake May, and we'll see where things go from there. But North Carolina, definitely an iconic brand. You talk about Michael Jordan, you talk about everything involved there with North Carolina, those colors, everything. It is an iconic brand, very similar to that of Florida State and Miami. It is one that definitely I think the SEC would look into bringing in. And then the question is, which is the other that you would bring in? If you had to choose out of NC State, you had to choose out of Virginia and Virginia Tech. I wouldn't think you would want to necessarily go for Virginia or Virginia Tech and not get the other one. I would probably lean closer to NC State. I think that they are kind of just fit the mold of one of the SEC type schools in terms of mentality, in terms of how they go about their athletics, things like that. I think the football program is improving over there, and we'll see what happens. But it would give it an in-state rival, just add even more of that to the North Carolina deal. Should you bring them in, that would give you 20 teams in the SEC, and you're talking about, if you added those 4 teams on top of Texas and Oklahoma, you're talking about not only dominating in terms of licensing deals and really the branding of college football for the most part, outside of, Ohio State, Michigan, and then of course USC is who the Big Ten added over there. But I think you've solidified, from all the way out in Oklahoma and Texas, all the way to the East Coast, you have solidified some of the most preeminent brands and also the best programs in terms of college football, the best recruiting programs. All of this comes into play. And I think there's also some really good basketball programs. Let's be honest, the basketball league of the SEC, I think, has surpassed that of the ACC. And nobody would have thought that just 5-6 years ago. So things have really changed over time. I think the SEC will always remain heavily at the top when it comes to college football. Look, since when you talk about in the last 17 years, 13 national champions have come out of the SEC. The last 17 years, the SEC has had more guys drafted than any other conference in the NFL draft year in and year out. The SEC is attractive. Greg Sankey has said, maybe they're not looking to expand past Texas and Oklahoma. I promise you, if the Big Ten starts making some of the calls that I think they'll make, okay, if some of these teams become available, if the Big Ten is looking around trying to make themselves more powerful, Greg Sankey's a competitor. Greg Sankey is a very good commissioner. He will do what he thinks he needs to do to protect the league. So the SEC, could it go to a 20-team league? Would you want to see that? Which teams would you want to see in it? We want to hear your thoughts. Put them in the comments, please. And make sure to subscribe here for not only baseball coverage all the way to Omaha. We got off-season basketball coverage here. There's some women's basketball coverage going on, and we will have you locked and loaded for all of the SEC football action. So for Southeastern 14, I am Blayne Gilmer, and we'll catch you guys next time talking more SEC football.